From the bright lights of Las Vegas to the cold, unforgiving walls of a prison cell, this is the unbelievable story of Rick Harrison, the face of Pawn Stars, whose empire crumbled under the weight of scandal and betrayal. You think you know reality TV, but this story? It's wilder than the show ever was. Rick Harrison, born Richard Kevin Harrison in 1965, wasn't your average reality TV star. Diagnosed with epilepsy as a child, Rick spent more time buried in books than out on playgrounds. While other kids were obsessed with cartoons, Rick was devouring history books and developing the brainpower that would later fuel his TV persona. He dropped out of high school during his sophomore year, but not out of ambition. Quite the opposite. He was already chasing bigger dreams. In his teenage years, Rick started working with his father in business, and by 17, he was a husband and soon-to-be father. The Harrisons moved to Las Vegas, and the gold and silver coin shop was born, a small, scrappy business that would one day become the heart of one of television's most recognizable franchises. What most people don't know is that Rick was hustling for years before the cameras ever showed up. He and his father dealt with rowdy customers, stolen goods, and late-night deals that made the Vegas Strip look tame. Those early years toughened Rick up, gave him the no-nonsense attitude fans would later love. He became a master negotiator, not because of training but because survival in that business demanded it. As early as the late 1990s, Rick had a vision. He saw potential in the pawn world as entertainment, but networks didn't bite. For 4 years, he pitched his show idea to every studio and cable executive who would take the meeting. Most passed. Some laughed. But in 2009, the History Channel finally said yes, and Pawn Stars hit the airwaves like a bolt of lightning. The show was different. It wasn't just about haggling over price tags. It was about the stories. Rick brought history to life, explaining the background of everything from Civil War rifles to vintage Coca-Cola machines. It was Antiques Roadshow meets Vegas drama, with a side of sarcasm. Rick, his son Corey, Big Hoss, his dad known affectionately as the Old Man, and their comic relief sidekick Chumley quickly became household names. Rick was the anchor, the wise, unshakable, eagle-eyed buyer who often said, "The best I can do is," before dropping an offer that would either make someone rich or send them storming out. Pawn Stars was a massive hit. At its peak, it drew millions of viewers each week and became one of the History Channel's top-rated shows. Celebrities dropped by, from Steve Carell to Bob Dylan. Even President Obama joked about watching the show. Rick wrote a book, opened a BBQ restaurant, made speaking appearances. He was living the American dream. But as we've seen time and time again in Hollywood, or in this case reality TV, success can be a slippery slope. And in 2023, Rick Harrison's world turned upside down. In the early hours of a quiet Tuesday, Rick's home and business were raided by a multi-agency task force, FBI, IRS, and officials from the Department of Cultural Heritage Protection. The internet exploded. Was this a prank? A publicity stunt? A misunderstanding? Nope. It was very real. Authorities seized computers, financial documents, and several items from the shop's inventory. Employees were temporarily detained. Rick's son Corey, who was on site at the time, later described the moment as something straight out of a movie. He wasn't wrong. The charges were staggering: tax evasion, money laundering, dealing in stolen property, and conspiracy to traffic illegally obtained cultural artifacts. According to prosecutors, Rick was involved in a long-running scheme to purchase historically significant items, many of them stolen or smuggled, then flip them through unofficial sales while undervaluing them on paper. The accusations claimed that Rick used a secondary ledger system, encrypted texts, and offshore accounts to hide profits and manipulate records. The biggest bombshell? A whistleblower from inside the pawn shop, a former trusted employee, had turned over evidence to authorities. Among the seized items were 18th century manuscripts, Spanish gold doubloons believed to have been recovered illegally from a shipwreck, and documents allegedly stolen from university archives. One text exchange between Rick and a supplier allegedly involved plans to disguise the provenance of a rare historical document, essentially laundering its identity. Throughout it all, Rick remained defiant. He appeared on conservative talk shows, claiming he was being targeted because of his political views and public success. His fans rallied. Hashtags like Blacks Are Free Rick and Osh Hearts for Harrison trended. Petitions were launched. Chumley and Corey attended court dates, standing by their longtime friend and father figure, but the evidence kept mounting. Former associates came forward, Some said they were asked to fudge numbers. Others revealed the existence of locked cabinets in the pawn shop used for off-the-books items. Prosecutors even uncovered texts allegedly discussing how to avoid IRS reporting thresholds by structuring cash deals under $10,000. And then came the trial. Inside the courtroom, it was a media circus. Cameras outside, fans camped for updates. When the guilty verdict was read, there were gasps. And then, the sentence, life imprisonment. Rick's face, usually calm and confident, turned ghost white. Corey reportedly buried his face in his hands. Chumley rushed out of the room, visibly shaken. The judge was unflinching. "You presented yourself to the public as a steward of history," she said. "But in reality, you participated in its destruction for personal gain." Rick's legal team appealed immediately, calling the sentence cruel and unusual. They argued that others convicted of similar nonviolent crimes received far lighter punishments. The cultural heritage community, however, applauded the ruling, saying it sent a message to high-end dealers who traffic in stolen history. In the fallout, the History Channel completely severed ties. Reruns were pulled from streaming. Merchandise disappeared. The gold and silver pawn shop took a massive financial hit. Tourists stopped showing up. Corey took over operations, quickly working to clean house. He implemented new protocols, partnered with museums for authentication, and launched educational outreach to help rebuild the shop's integrity. "What happened was wrong," he said in an interview. "But we're committed to being part of the solution now." Rick's supporters haven't given up. Online forums have been flooded with stories from fans who credit the show with sparking their love for history. One viral post read, "Rick made me care about the Constitution more than any teacher ever did." Weekly prayer circles now gather outside the shop. Letters pour in by the hundreds. Meanwhile, Rick sits behind bars, awaiting a decision on his appeal. Some legal analysts say the sentence could be reduced. Others believe it will stand, given the weight of the cultural crimes involved. And the cultural conversation around his case? It's rippled out. Other celebrity business figures are under scrutiny. It's drawn comparisons to cases like Joe Exotic from Tiger King, and even shades of the college admission scandal that landed Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin in prison. But this one feels different, because Rick wasn't some reality villain or Hollywood elite. He was a self-made success story, a man who made history fun for millions. And now, according to the court, he helped destroy it. The story of Rick Harrison is still being written. But for now, the man who once said everything has a story is living out the darkest chapter of his own. If you've stuck with us through this wild ride, we want to hear from you. Do you think justice was served? Was Rick treated unfairly? Or did his fall reveal a truth we just didn't want to see? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss an update as this unbelievable story continues to unfold. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the price of fame is far higher than anyone can bargain for.